Marthalene, if you would tell me about, I guess, Uncle Marvin's sister that moved to Oklahoma.
Yes, Aunt Maggie was 16, and her older cousin came from Oklahoma, and so they got to be real good friends, and he wanted her to go back with him to Oklahoma. Well, of course, her parents were horrified and didn't want a 16-year-old girl to leave without a 30 or 40-year-old man. But time came that they just left without permission. She just went on with him. But the whole family was very much upset about that. And then, in just a few weeks, her brother, Uncle Marvin, went out to Oklahoma himself to see just what was going on out there. Well, when he got out there, he found that they were married, and they had two girls, very pretty girls, and he lived for a few years, but then he died. Then Aunt Maggie married somebody else and had two more pretty girls by that man. And all she had 4 daughters. One of them didn't live to be very old though. And Uncle Marvin by that time was settled in Oklahoma. So he lived there the rest of his life. And he had 3 girls and a boy. And then only one of the girls is living. Mildred is living, but the others have died. And
Now, who was this that went out there with him? Thor, wasn't it?
the Thor was the man that Aunt Maggie went out there with, Thor.
And who was he?
And he was Aunt Caddy, my great aunt's son. She had
Okay.
another son too, and that was Johnny. And Johnny was the father of Wayne and ours.
Okay.
He had been to Oklahoma and got married out there. His wife lived there. And then they came back to North Carolina in July.
What was this Thor man's name?
The one that came back here was Wayne's father, was Johnny. But the one that Aunt Maggie married was Tom.
Okay.
And
But Uncle Marvin went out to Oklahoma and to check on
Aunt Maggie,
Aunt Maggie.
just a little while after she went out there with Tom Thor.
But now Aunt Maggie just returned with Tom Thor. He already had a family in Oklahoma. Is that right?
I never heard of his having a family
Okay.
out there.
So
If he had been married before, I didn't know it.
so he married Aunt Maggie,
Aunt Maggie,
and he was much older than she.
right.
And so Grandma or somebody in the family sends Uncle Marvin out to Oklahoma.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So who did Uncle Marvin marry when he got to Oklahoma?
Well, I don't know just what her last name was. And not all, I can't think of her first name. But anyway, he married out there.
And what did, I guess, who did how many children did Uncle Marvin have?
Uncle Marvin and his wife had 4 children. One boy and 3 girls. One of the girls married when she was very young.
Do you know the names of them?
And the names of them were Mildred, and that's the one that came here with Uncle Marvin.
Yeah, I remember her.
And Esther, the oldest one.
She never came to Rockford, did she?
No, she never came, I'm sure. And she died and was buried the very day that Bernice was buried. That
Okay.
night, Mildred called me and told me that she had been buried that day.
And then there was Mildred, and what you said there were 2 other children.
Mildred and Esther and the boy, he was Marvin Jr.
Okay.
And the younger girl who died just in her teens. And I believe her name was Pauline.
Okay. Did Esther, is that how you pronounce that lady's?
Yes.
What kind of family did she have?
Well, she had a boy and a girl. One time time that girl and her husband came to Rockland to see Mom, and then she went on to Pleasant Garden to see an accident. And the girl's husband, the girl was Mary Lee, and her husband and his brother ran a place where they made children's clothes.
Is this in Oklahoma?
And no, that wasn't in Oklahoma. It was
Okay.
about Baltimore or somewhere like that.
Okay.
It wasn't in Oklahoma though.
And one of the girls died in in their teens. Uncle Marvin's children. Is that right?
Yes. And one of Aunt Maggie's children. That was another aunt of ours.
Okay. Now, how many? Excuse me. Go ahead.
And she, I think Aunt Maggie was the one that went with Tom Thor.
Okay.
And she had 4 girls. And one of them died when she was very young. And the others are still living.
But now there was some problem between Uncle Marvin's family and Aunt Maggie's.
Now that happened just in the last years of their lives. One time, Robert Burrus, Max's father, was out that way on business and went by to see him. And so he asked Uncle Marvin about Aunt Maggie's family. And he said, well, we don't have anything to do with Maggie's family. Said Maggie married a full-blooded Indian the last time she married. So since then, we haven't had anything to do with it.
Okay, but getting to Aunt Maggie's family, there were 4 well, wait a minute. She married a full-blooded Indian the last time, but
The last time, and 2 of her children were by this man, but they were beautiful girls. I have their pictures.
okay, you have Aunt Maggie's 2 daughters by the Indian picture. Okay, her children by Tom Thor. Now, who were they?
Marguerite and Juanita.
Okay, tell me about Marguerite and Juanita.
And I never saw either one of those, but I have seen their pictures. And Selena, her daughter by her last husband, I correspond with her at least once a year at Christmas, and she tells me all about the others. And she was very close to Juanita and Marguerite.
Now, do you know anything about Marguerite as to who she married, any children, or her occupation?
So I have known her husband's name, but he isn't living now, and I don't know his name.
Now, what was, besides Marguerite, what was the other daughter?
Juanita.
You know, just all you know is her name, or do you have a picture of her too?
No, I don't know her married name.
Okay. So, Aunt Maggie had 2 children by Tom Thor, Marguerite and Juanita. Then she had 2 children by the full-blooded Indian. And their names were?
Mabel and Selena.
Mabel and Selena. Okay. You have
Selena-
picture.
Selena was by our grandmother, named after our grandmother.
Okay. And so Selena, do you know anything about her? Is she living or?
Yes, she's living. I hear from her every Christmas. But I believe her husband is dead now, and they had only one adopted son. He's
Okay.
still living. She tells me about him every Christmas.
And the name of the other child by the full-blooded Indian?
Mabel.
What about her? Is she still living?
No, that one died in the early teens.
Okay. As to when did Aunt Maggie die, and do you know anything about that, or what if she was a homemaker, or she lived, or if she worked in a factory or anything?
I'll tell you what kind of work she did at first. She operated an elevator. You know, they used to always have people in there to operate. And that would point time for electricity, I guess. And that's what she did for the first several years that she was in Oklahoma.
Do you know what city in Oklahoma we're talking about?
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Now that's the town or a suburb thereof that Uncle Marvin also.
And and he lived in Harrow, Oklahoma.
Okay. Do you know the occupations of Aunt Maggie's husband, what Tom Thor did and what
No, I don't know what he did.
Okay. What about Uncle Marvin? Do you know how he made a living?
I don't, but one time when Robert was out there, he was building a drugstore. That was his son. He was building a drugstore, and he opened that a little while after that and ran that for some years. But and his name was Marvin Jr. And he had a knot in his throat, and when he went to have that removed, they found that he was just cancerous all over, and so he died in just a few days after he had that done.
Now, Uncle Marvin was not dead at this time, was he?
No, I think he lived longer than his son. But in a very short period of time, Uncle Marvin and his son and the husbands of both of Uncle Marvin's daughters died. So that was 4 people in that same family that died in just a short length of time.
Now, Mildred's the one who's come out here a couple of times, I believe.
Well, Mildred came one time, and it wasn't long before Mama died. And she just wrote to me one day, and I had no idea who it was when I saw her name in the corner of the envelope. But she told me that she was going to bring her father out here to see my mother. That he wanted to come, and he was up in 80 then, and he thought that he could just get on the train and come like he did a time or two after he got out there. But she said she knew he couldn't do it, so she and her husband got a new car, and they and their son came out here and brought Uncle Marvin, and they stayed about 10 days.
Tell me about that. I was a young boy at that time, but I don't remember the particulars. It was an article in a newspaper in Elkin, I think, after 50 years he came, they hadn't seen each other. Tell me the circumstances.
Well, they just came. They told us what day they would arrive. And they came, Uncle Marvin and his daughter, her husband, their son. And decided after a few days that maybe I had notified too many of his relatives out here, because we had just company galore for several days. But anyway, we thoroughly enjoyed having them, and every minute of it was real pleasant to all of us. And after about 10 days, I think that's how long it stayed, they left early one morning. And I remember what Mama said when the car went out of sight. She said, well, I know I'll never see Marvin again, but these have been 10 glorious days. So we did have a good time when they came to see us.
Well, before he had come, how long was it before he and Grandma had seen each other? I mean, how many years? Do you remember? 50 or some such?
Well, I think it might have been something like that, but I think he did come once or twice in that period of time.
Now, how old was Uncle Marvin when he actually left to go out to find Aunt Maggie? Was he 16?
He would have been in the 20s.
Okay. I think Mildred has had some tragedies, hasn't she? Did her husband die, or did she marry somebody?
They were at a military base, and her husband just died suddenly at work that base. And then after that, she married a man who had been their boss, hers and her husband, for about 30 years, and so she married that man.
So when she came to your house a couple of years ago, this was the new husband that was with her.
Yes, it was a new husband, and they were very interested in traveling, and they had a new camper, and had been to Tennessee. Let's see, who is that person that sings from Tennessee and has a place named after her?
Dolly Parton.
They had been to Dollywood and stayed there several days. And then they came on down on 77. And of course they didn't know anything about this part of the country. But they asked me to meet them in Dobson. And so I did. I met them at the filling station in Dobson and directed them on
But
they
as to what Uncle Marvin did in Oklahoma, as far as you know, he was in construction or some such.
Well, yes, I think so. I don't know exactly what he did. Now, imagine he did a variety of things during the several years he lived there.
Now, Uncle Marvin's wife, was she a housewife or did she work anymore?
Housewife, she did. I don't believe she ever worked away from home.
Well, didn't Annalie and Ralph stop in to see them? Did they?
Yes. Let's see, that was when they had been to see David's family in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back a southern route and went by to see them in Oklahoma.
Okay. So, as to who is still living of Uncle Marvin's relatives out there, would be Mildred. Now, the son who developed the cancer is deceased, right?
He's deceased, and
And there's a teenage daughter who's just died in her teenage years. And what was Esther, the other lady? Is she deceased?
And she was the mother of Mary Lee, who came to see us that time. And Mary Lee, though, died suddenly with a stroke when she was still a very young woman. And Esther was in poor health then, and she had one son left. He lived in Florida. And so he came and got her and carried her to Florida, where she lived the rest of her life, the last part, I think, in a nursing home. And it hasn't been more than 6 months ago that she died.
We're talking about 1993, September 1993, 6 months ago. All right, now as to Juanita and Marguerite, they're deceased. Did you tell me that?
I believe they're both living, I believe.
Okay, you still write to them at one time every year. Is that the one?
And I don't write to them. I write to Selena, and what I know about them, I hear through her.
Okay. There was some reference to Mabel or somebody. Is she deceased?
She was deceased. Aunt Maggie had a daughter who died in her early teens, and so did Uncle Marvin.
Okay, but you believe Marguerite and Juanita are still living?
I believe they are.
As to who their children, we said you didn't know who their children were, right?
No, I didn't know their husbands' names, or I didn't know their children.
And Uncle Marvin's been dead about how long?
I would say about 10 years.
Okay.
All people, his son and his two sons-in-law, and he all died within a 10-year period.
Okay. Now tell me this, was he older than Grandma, and tell me, was Grandma younger, or how was that?
Well, in your grandmother and my mother's family, Mama was up towards the top of in age. The oldest one was Aunt Dora, and then the next one I think was Mama, and then Uncle John, and Aunt Axie, and Uncle Marvin, and the little one that died, and he's about 2 years old, Cheryl.
Okay. Now what was Annalee's mother's name?
Aunt Daisy. Got that. Aunt Daisy. She was one of the younger ones too. And Uncle Marvin was in there, like next above Aunt Daisy, I believe.
Okay. So any residue of Uncle Marvin's family would probably be Mildred, Juanita, and Marguerite, who we think most.
Juanita and Marguerite from Aunt Maggie's family.
Okay, I was just really referring to. But now, Aunt Maggie, who was she? Was she a sister? No.
She was a sister to your grandmother and my mother.
Oh. So Aunt Maggie was a sister to who?
To Uncle Marvin and to my mother and to Aunt Axie and Uncle John and Aunt Daisy.
Aunt Maggie was. Okay. All right, the mother and father, who were they?
Of the ones we've been talking about. Well, they're my father and grandmother.
Okay, tell me about them.
Frank Burrus, and he married Selena Chandler.
Okay.
And they're the parents of all these we've been talking about.
All right, now at one time they lived over across the house where, across from where Al Moore's farm is, and he keeps Mexicans there now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying something I can relate to.
Yes.
And he also lived up there where Lloyd Wilmuth lived and
Yes.
Alvin Wilmuth lives.
Mm-hmm. And at one time they lived up on the railroad, a house up on the hill from the railroad.
That's even down further than where the low water bridge is, right? Towards Crutchfield.
Yes, on down that railroad.
It's just nothing but woods now, right?
And then they lived at the Dobson place.
Right.
And they never owned a home of their own.
Okay. But you told me a story about when the two ladies across from the Baptist church lived there, and somebody fell and broke a hip, and then they moved down there.
They were Grandpa's two sisters.
That's Frank Burrus's two sisters.
His name was Frank Burrus. And at that time, they were living at that house up there across the field from Al Moore's. That's where Grandpa's folks lived. But my two aunts, great aunts, lived across the road from the Baptist church in a long white house.
Okay.
And so, of course, when Aunt Neil fell and broke her hip, somebody went after Grandpa immediately. And so that very night, even though it was about dark when it happened, that very night they moved down to that long white house.
Okay. And they lived there. The lady who broke her hips shortly thereafter died. Is that right?
No, now that's not right. The people that lived there then were my two great aunts, and then Grandpa and Grandma, and Uncle John, and Aunt Daisy, and Aunt Lee. There's 7 people who lived there. Well, in all, I would say they lived there 15 years. And the first one to die was Aunt Caddy. She was the older of the two sisters. And next was my grandma. And then the one that broke her hip, Aunt Neil. And then a few years after that, Aunt Daisy, the one that had been looking after her all those years, she had cancer of the throat, and she died.
Okay.
And then Grandpa and Uncle John and Aunt Lee were all living at that house. And so Mama fixed one of the houses across the road from our house belonged to us. And a nurse lived there with some orphan children she was taking care of.
That's Aunt Anna, right? Aunt Anna Bryant.
That was Miss Anna Bryant. And Mama brought Grandpa and Uncle John to one of the rooms in that house. And she cooked their food every day, every meal, and carried it over there to their room. And the nurse who was living there helped them with their meal. And then the dishes were all brought back to our house to be washed.
And this was to feed
John and
Grandpa Frank.
And then Aunt Lee went to our house the very next day after her mother was buried.
Let's back up here just a minute. I didn't understand something. At the time the lady, Aunt Neil, broke her hip, the only 2 people who were living there was Aunt Neil and Aunt Caddy.
That's right. And Aunt Caddy was the mother of the Thor men, John and Tom.
And Tom's the one who went out west with Aunt Maggie. Am I right on that?
That's right.
Now, at this point in time, Anna Lee's mother was not living with Aunt Neil, and
Well, she was the last one to die up there on the hill. And then Grandpa and Uncle John were left, and they were moved down to our house.
but the night they moved down there from across from Al Moore's house was when Aunt Neil broke her hip, right?
That's right. And I think it must have been 15 years after that they lived at that house.
So they lived there a long time, all of them. That'd still have been Aunt Neil because she lived a long time with her broken hip. Is that right?
Yes, she did, and nothing was ever done to her broken hip. It was never said or anything like that.
So she must have been bedfast or in a wheelchair or something.
That's right.
And then Aunt Kelly was there. Then Grandpa Frank was there. And at what point did Selena was there too, wasn't she? Or
Selena, that was Grandpa's wife, my grandma.
that's Grandma Selena. Did she pass away in?
Yes, she was the second one. Aunt Kathy was first, and then my grandmother. And then the one with the broken hip. And then Aunt Daisy, 4 of them died.
That's it. When that happened, then they Grandma had to bring them down to live where Coke Wall did live, in my memory. Okay. And then Anna Lee was brought down to your.
Yes, she was 13. She got to our house, and she was in high school.
Okay. So Grandma raised her from 13 on up to. Let's see. There's a funny story you told about somebody coming out and Frank Burrus was on the porch from the church. And tell that just a minute. I can't remember.
Oh, my grandfather, Frank Burrus, was
Justice of Peace, something like that.
Was Justice of the Peace.
Okay.
And there was a woman whose sons had missed school so much that finally they were a warrant was drawn on that woman, and they had a little trial. My grandfather presided, and she was fined. Don't know how much. I would guess $3 or $4 though. And so one night they were having a revival at the church across the road from Grandpa's house, and Miss Saunders, this woman who had been fined about her children not going to school, saw Grandpa sitting on the porch, and she said, "Frank Burrus, I hate you." And
what did Grandpa say?
Grandpa said, "Well, Miss Saunders, I really do hate that." And she said, "And when you die, I want you to know I will not be at your funeral." And Grandpa said, "Well, I surely will be sad, Miss Saunders, if you're not at my funeral."
But they moved down to, after the deaths we referred to, moved down to your house, or across the road there, Grandpa and Grandpa Frank and Uncle John across the road, and then Anna Lee moves into your house. Okay. Well, at this point, Uncle John lives a real long time there, and how long did Grandpa Frank Burrus live there before he passed away? I mean, was it several years?
Let's see, my father died in 1935.
Okay.
And at the time he died, Grandpa was visiting over with my aunt in Taylorsville.
In Axie.
And the next year, and I was in college then, the next year, Grandpa got real sick. And so Mama brought him over to the house and put a single bed in her bedroom and kept Grandpa in there. And he died the next February.
So Grandpa Davis died in what year now? 19?
In 35.
So Grandpa Frank Burrus would have died in 37 or something like that, right?
No, it would have been 35. It would have been 36.
Okay. At this time, Uncle John was still across the road with Aunt Anna?
Yes, but he was getting so feeble he could hardly walk at all. So I don't know just how long it was after Grandpa died that Mama brought Uncle John over to our house, and he spent the rest of his life in our back room. That was about 15 years.
Oh, he was waited on hand and foot.
Yes, he was perfectly helpless.
Okay. So he lived on up 15 years. You don't know what year he died, though. It must have been 1936, and they had 15 years to it. So.
I believe it was 49 when he died. I think I've seen that on his monument.
Okay. So, well, tell me about Grandpa Davis. You said you were studying one night, and he.
This is my father. Three teachers were boarding in our house, and they Papa had already gone to bed and were asleep. And I was 11 years old, and I was studying there at the desk in our room. And everybody in the house was asleep except me. And so all of a sudden, Papa just raised right straight up in the bed and fell back down on his pillow and had a terrible convulsion.
Okay, what happened then?
Of course, we thought he was dying. And so I called everybody in the house and got them up, and Mr. Houck, the decoy agent, went across the road and told the neighbors over there, the Bryants, about it. And so they came over immediately. And there was just one telephone in the whole country, and that was up at Mr. Joe Stanley's, close to Stone Knoll. And Mr. Houck went up to Mr. Joe's and called Dr. Stone at Dobson. And by that time, it was up in the morning, not much. But Dr. Stone came. He was an old man, but he came on. And he thought that it was because Papa had real high blood pressure. And so then they didn't have all the devices they have now to detect diseases immediately. And so right then, Papa's illness began, and he never did see another well day. And I guess it must have been 7 years that he lived, because I was 18 when he died. I'd been to college 1 year.
Okay. Did he continue to carry on, though, his function? Was he at the post office at that time, or was he running the store?
Well, he already was out of the post office and was running a little grocery store down there. Well, when he was able, he would go to the store, because he'd been going to something for years and years, either to the post office or to the store. But he wasn't able to transact business very well. And so it was 7 years from that time until he died. And we didn't have electricity then. We were using oil lamps. But the light never went out in our house from that night until the night after my daddy's funeral.
But you said when he actually passed away, though, he was at the dinner table, and I believe you told me
Yes, when it was the first day of June, 1935, and we were at the dinner table, and the decoy agent who boarded with us was still there, and my cousin Odell Atkins was eating there, and also my Uncle John, who was just almost past going then. And so Papa just all of a sudden just slumped over, and his head went in his plate, and right then I guess he had a stroke. But anyway, the men that were there helped to get him to the bed. And that day, Dr. Tilden Burrus was visiting at Robert's house. And Mom got a man to go up there and get Robert and the doctor.
And you said Mother was expecting Tilden, I believe, didn't mention it to her.
6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dr. Burrus realized it was right at the very end. And so he told Mama, said, "This is not anything we can do now," and said, "Just keep him as comfortable as you can, it won't be long," which was true. He died in just about an hour. And that was June the 1st, 1935.
Now, were you there at the table, or were you at college at the end?
And I was at the table right there. It was just, I still remember it real well.
Okay. Now, Grandpa Davis ran the post office for some years.
Lots of years, I don't know just how long.
And back then, when a different party went in the White House, the post office changed, and so that's why I guess it changed about. You said something about Grandpa coming from Yagan or from Boonville, and he was running the W.P. Dobson store, and that's how Grandma got to meet. Is that correct?
He came from Boonville when he was 18. And I don't know whether it was the W.P. Dobson store or Mr. Francis' store that he first worked in. But anyway, he worked at both of them at different times. And so
You said he may have been even had living quarters in the store somewhere, possibly. I'm not sure about that.
I don't know what lived between the times he worked in the store and the time he got to be postmaster.
Okay.
But anyway, when he and Mama got married, they boarded in New York Tavern.
Okay.
And he started our house. The house across the road from him was a little store building. He moved that store building across the road and started our house on that lot.
Okay. Well, I think we better rest some right now.
Well, I'll be so
days ago, and she had big old round ones that kind of tapered off some up here, you know. I forgot what she called them.
So this is Grandma Burrus's sister. That's Al's.
Have you got this on?
Yeah.
Well, now, why don't you get Reba up there and talk to her some, let her tell you some things.
Maybe I'll get right here.
I can't tell you anything.
Where can I put this?
Well, at some point, maybe she'll talk about that picture and she can hold it up in front of her and you get it that way, can't you?
Well, you know, I don't know anything about these pictures. They're just handed down to me, and
Get it warmed up a little bit in here.
I
Come
should
here,
have
please.
wiped them off. I didn't.
That's
even
Grandma
think about it.
Burrus's father.
Look at that goatee.
Now, this is Grandma Burrus's. She was Grandma Burrus, Spencer Burrus. What is his name? I'm sorry.
Thomas R. Spencer. I've forgotten what the R's for. I think it's Raymond, but I'm not sure, but it's Thomas R. Spencer.
Okay. He was married to whom? No, I have it in the picture right now.
Oh, I forgot my notebook. It's got that in it.
Okay, so he's Thomas Raymond Spencer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell you in a minute
Now
what her name
the
is.
children he had were Mary Lucinda Spencer. Am I wrong on that? My grandma.
Let her do.
Yeah, that's right.
Then
Mary and Lucy.
this is my grandma's sister, Lucy. That's her grandma. This is Al's mother.
You and she have the same grandma?
Yeah.
No,
No,
but your great grandma.
Yeah.
now this is my grandpa's, as you were. This is my grandma's father. We do not have a picture of grandma, my great grandma. You've got it, but we don't.
It's on that right there.
Okay, all right. Now this is another picture of him at a log cabin in Boonville.
That's where they lived.
So this is a picture of him in here, and here's a picture of him, grandma,
And her sister. And I think her sister's name was Sarah.
Just a minute here, let me. Okay.
Elvira was her name. Your,
All right.
your grandma.
So Thomas was married to Elvira.
Elvira Davis.
Elvira Davis. That's real strange because all my Davis relatives came from Boonville also. Do you know that?
No. I just don't know much about history because Mama never did talk about it, but she never did know,
People used to didn't keep up with family
No.
like they do now.
Okay, so this is Grandpa Thomas Raymond Spencer.
Right.
And this is Elvira
Elvira
Davis Spencer,
right.
his wife, and she would have been my great grandma.
Mhm.
Or she's my great grandma and grandpa, virtue of being the parents of Mary Lucinda Spencer Burrus,
Right.
who married Robert Newton Burrus. Okay. Now Mary Lucinda Spencer had a sister named Lucy, and Lucy is the mother of Alzy. Am I right? She is your grandma.
Mhm.
She's my great aunt. Is that right? But
Oh, yeah, that's right.
she is also the daughter of Elvira and Thomas Raymond. This thing here. She's Al's mother and your grandmother. Okay. Now then, there were some more children. Who were they? Uncle Jacob.
Jacob and William.
Okay, just a minute. Okay. This is Reba Norman, Al's daughter. All right, so in this family we have Mary Lucinda, who's my grandma, and this is her mother and daddy. And this is my grandma's sister, Lucy, Al's mother, and she was married to Jack Vestal. Am I correct on that? All right. How many children did Jack Vestal and Lucy have in addition to Al's? She was the only one.
She's
wasn't
the only one.
she? Yeah, that hit me right there. So this is Lucy's. Do you see what I'm talking about here, Shirley? So that's your grandma, and she's my grand aunt. Lucy is. And in some of the other pictures, you have a picture of Jack Vestal too, I believe.
Yeah, there in that little book there, I've got all of them. got your grandmother and her together.
Okay, let's see. Now, just a minute. Tell me who. Now, there's some more in here. Uncle Jacob married
Cindy Brown,
Cindy Brown, and they had no children.
no children.
And they grew up and lived in Boonville. And I knew who they were. I attended both their funerals, I believe. There were some others that moved to Iowa. Now, tell me who they are.
William, the brother to Uncle Jacob, and Grandma and your grandma.
Okay. So in addition to Mary Lucinda, Lucy, and Uncle Jacob, there was a William.
Who
Tell me who he
went to
married.
Iowa. Went to Iowa.
Okay. And he married a Boonville girl, or?
As far as I know, he did. But
You may not know who she is or anything.
no, I don't know who she is. I think I have that name down.
So William married a lady, and did you know if before he moved to Iowa, did he have his children in Boonville, or did he go out there and live and have his children out there?
I think he had part of them in Boonville. Let's see, there was Raymond, and Hayden, and Penis, and Lydia.
Raymond. Go over them again. Raymond.
Hayden.
Hayden.
Do you remember he came in not many years ago?
I'm not remembering that, but there was Raymond and Hayden, and then there's Lydia, and who else?
Kenis.
K-E.
Kenus.
Is that a man or woman?
It's a man.
Okay. So there were the three boys and one girl in that family, or were there some more?
That's all I think of. I believe that's all they were.
You told me they were buried in a town and lived in a town in Iowa. Buffalo something, wasn't it?
Buffalo Center.
Buffalo Center, Iowa. And they're all buried out there, as far as you know.
Yeah.
Now, is there some of them still living and come back and forth?
They don't come in anymore that I know of. Lydia married
One of them married somebody from Boonville.
Maston. I can't call his name right now.
Were they all from Iowa? Or were they?
From
Buffalo?
they lived at Elkin for a while, and then they moved out there because.
Yeah, I believe you told me that they come back in because the wives have people here or something.
The man that she married, I can't call his name right now, had a sister in guardian care. She used to live over on the street the high school's on.
Yeah. So that's.
And then the last I knew, she was in the guardian care rest home. I don't know if she's still living or not. So they came back.
Guardian care being in Elkin.
Yeah, occasionally. And their two sons came in occasionally.
Okay.
That
So-
was Paul and I can't call that Kiefer Maston. That's who the man was that Lydia married.
Okay, now it was William that moved to Iowa, Buffalo. Okay. Did we know what he did out there, or I mean, was it?
He raised cattle. I know he had a cattle farm.
Okay. And so you said, I believe, that Alsie went out and visited him once or twice or something. Isn't that right?
They went one time, Mom and Dad did, visited him out there.
Okay.
Somewhere I've got some pictures
Wonder
that
what.
they made.
Wonder what. that town near a big town in Iowa,
I don't even know.
Buffalo Center?
Buffalo Center.
And they would be buried out there and raise their families there and went to school there and all that probably. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else I was. But now, your mother was Alzy, and she was the only child, and she was my daddy's first cousin.
Right.
And you said that she was born in Siloam.
Right.
And you don't know how long they lived there until she was a certain age, I believe.
I think she told me she was a year old when they left Siloam and came right this side of Dawson and lived for 3 or 4 years before they came to the foot of the mountain.
That place you showed me earlier tonight. Of course, the house is not gone; it's just up a holler there. And she would have walked to school down here behind where the Roaring Gap Cemetery.
Right.
There's a school located there.
Peach Orchard is the name of it.
Peach Orchard School was the name of it. Okay. Then they moved down the road about a mile or 2 miles or something.
Well, where that little store.
The little store was, and then the house was across the road.
They moved there when she was, I think, 13, and
Okay.
they lived there. I think it was 5 years. Maybe she wasn't quite 13.
So we're talking about, this is hard to follow, but we're talking about Lucy and Jack Vesterlaw lived there, raising Alzy. Okay.
Right.
And then they ran a store across the road and lived, lived where you showed me a few minutes ago. But you said that, who was it you said that went to the Trap Hill Academy? Was
That's my father.
That was,
That was Wiley.
Wiley Calloway. And he was a mail carrier all those years, right? I mean, that's what he did for a living.
Mail carrier for 49 years.
And you said the first 18 years he used a horse, and then later, was it T-model or A-model? Okay.
Both. He used T-model a little, and then he got him an A-model. He used that for a good long while.
Okay. And let's see. Then I guess from that location you moved down to Thurman, up there, right below the other side of the Methodist Church. You turn back in, right in there. That's where. And so, so you would have gone to what school? I'm not sure.
I came to Roaring Gap, which was this side of the church that I showed you. You come on over toward Track Hill, about a mile. There was a little school building, and that's where I went to school. But it's not, I don't think it's standing anymore.
There were school buses in and everything, weren't there? Or did you have to walk?
No.
You had to
There
walk
was
school.
no school buses.
You had to walk
Time,
school.
No, I didn't walk. Mrs. Journey that lived right out the road from us was a teacher. In fact, she was the superintendent. And me and my brother and 2 or 3 other children there out of Thurman rode with her. She took us of the day. But the children from Doughton, the Doughton area, and back in toward Trap Hill section, and up from Center Road, they all walked.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not really good at doing this or anything, but I wanted to ask. Now, does that cover all? We got my grandma and Lucy, your grandma, and Uncle Jacob, and William. Were there any more children
No.
to Al? Now this is Elvira and Thomas Raymond's Spencer's children.
Right.
There wasn't any more.
No, just the 4, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Okay. But as far as who's left out in Iowa, do you have any contact with them or know how many people are out there?
No, I don't have any contact with them so far.
Do they come in to the people in Elkin?
They have, not that I know of, they haven't been in a long time.
There's got to be, so William out in Iowa had 4 children, right?
Yes.
So there probably is some children and grandchildren.
Oh yes. Mama has pictures that they've sent her and along of grandchildren. So there are people out there from those families. I don't know how many.
Okay. Now you told me this picture of this log cabin over here. That's Grandma and Grandpa. That'd be my great grandma and grandpa, I believe. That's in Boonville, but we don't really know where that log cabin is in Boonville.
No, I don't. I wasn't never there, so I don't know.
You said that, what's that lady's name in Boonville that might know where it was?
Ethel Bovender.
Ethel Bovender, I think she's now.
Brown, I believe is her name now.
But you know, when I go by her house now, I never see her car there. You don't reckon she's in the rest home or something?
Have no idea.
You haven't seen her since the day of the funeral?
No. Haven't seen her or heard from her or anything. Have no idea.
Okay. Let's see. Now, Uncle Jacob lived in Boonville all of his life, as far as we know.
Yeah.
And do we know, did he go in the army or anything? We don't know anything like that.
No, I don't think so, but I don't know for sure. But I never ever heard any tell of it.
We don't know if Thomas Raymond was in the army or Civil War or anything.
No, I don't know that either.
And as far as knowing who Thomas Raymond's father was, going back another generation, we have no, or if he came from another state or.
No, I don't know.
Okay, so I guess this Jack Vestal, which is pretty much a Boonville name, would have met Lucy in Boonville somewhere. I mean.
Well, that's my guess.
And how they ended up in Siloam, we really don't.
No, I have no idea.
How they met each other or ended up in Siloam or anything like that.
No, I wish I did. I wish I knew that.
Yeah. Let's see. But now, Alzy and Wiley, that's your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you had a brother named Paul, I believe.
Right.
He was killed in the war or something?
World War II.
Okay. You know any of the details there? Was he in Germany or Japan?
He was in Germany on the Rhine River near where they blew out that Remagen Bridge.
Remagen Bridge?
If you remember that. He was in the Rhine Valley.
He was with you know what his company unit was?
Well, I've got it at home. He was briefing his men. He was had a tank
He was.
He was a commander of a tank outfit, and he had a bunch of men under him that he was giving instructions to when the shell landed in the middle of their camp. And I don't know how many of them it took out, but a bunch of them was fixing to go into battle.
Did he go to Mountain Park School or did
Yeah, he graduated.
That's why Marthalene knows who he was and everything, I believe.
Yeah,
Was
I
that-
would think so.
Yeah, she told me about him. So she would have known him at Mountain Park School. That's the reason I sort of guessed that that's how she knew him.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as let's see, do you know if there's much contact between your family and the people in Rockford or any other Burruses, or well, of course Spencer, I know, but my family. I think you said your mother went over there occasionally or something.
Yeah, it was back at that time, that was a long way for them to travel back and forth, you know, so they didn't visit too often.
But mainly at funerals or homecomings or
Yeah.
reunions or something.
Yeah, and occasionally they would just go visit, but most time it was some special occasion or something. And occasionally, I know
My
Creole, and don't remember who was with her, but would go up the mountain, you know, in the spring or fall, and usually when any of them came up that way, they would stop and visit for a little bit.
Okay. Well, I guess your mom and dad had gardens and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
And he probably had a horse. Well, you said he had a horse there to even take the mail there for a while.
For a long time he had.
And but as far as having a lot of contact with the people in Iowa, that wasn't too often, was it?
Not too often. Mama, especially after she and Dad visited them, she heard from them often enough. They would write to her.
You know what year she went over there and visited them or anything? Or
Not right offhand. I can look it up.
was she did she spend a couple of weeks or?
No, they spent a week. I think they were just gone a week.
You know if they went in the train or anything, how they went or anything?
They went with some of them who had come in. I think it was rain. I'm not sure, but then some of them were in, and they went back with them by car, and they came back on bus.
Bus, okay. Okay. But so I guess they just went out there. How that family, that's William, right? Got out to Iowa. How he got out there, nobody knows, right? I guess why he went out there. Or?
No, I don't know why he went.
But he must evidently liked it. Spent the rest of his life there. He would be buried probably at a Baptist church cemetery out there, or do we know?
I've got the name of the church somewhere.
So he's buried out there then. Okay. And then we have my grandma over in Rockford. And the reason I'm not asking a lot more questions, I know some of that, you know. But did she ever visit there much or anything?
Who was that?
My grandma, Mary Lucinda.
I don't know, but I don't think very much. I never heard.
You know, he didn't drive. You know, Grandpa didn't drive, so.
I don't think they visited very much.
Okay.
Because Mama never did
Talk about it.
talk about them, coming.
Okay. And Uncle Jacob he was primarily a farmer, or did he carry the mail or anything special? Or do you
No, I think he was mostly a farmer.
I don't believe he ran a store there, did he? I don't
No,
think so.
not that I know anything about.
And Aunt Cindy was a Brown.
Mhm.
Okay. That may have something to do with that, no? Reckon the Bugner lady that stayed with him for a while, was she a Brown, reckon?
No.
Oh. Well, anyway, I don't think that's...
I ought to know. I know what she was, but I can't think of it.
Well, let me ask you this. My Robert Newton and Mary Lucinda were married in Boonville, and they owned a farm over there. And do you know you probably don't know anything about that, do you? Where it was?
No, I don't know anything about it.
That Brown woman might know? Or the
She
Bubbinger
might.
woman, brother?
She might.
Yeah, okay.
Because they took care of Uncle David Cindy for a long time,
Yeah. And her husband had some kind of disability, I believe.
Yeah, he lost both of his legs. And he was a paraplegic.
Yeah.
The only one he actually had.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Robert Newton and Mary Lucinda had 4 stillborn babies. And I thought I thought I was at their graves one time with my daddy. I believe I told you this story. Or maybe I told it to you. And I thought it was at the Boonville Cemetery. But you don't have any knowledge of Mary Lucinda having...
No. See, that would have been when Mama was a child.
Yeah, so I just don't know how I got mixed up on that. I believe I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to show you a few things that I have, okay?
Yeah.